Explaining to my kids that their half-brother feeling the way he does is sometimes part of life. My husband and I are raising 3 kids. My husband was married before me and he has a son, Cole, 16M, from his first marriage. Cole's mom died 11 years ago and my husband and I met 9 years ago and married 7 years ago. Together my husband and I have a daughter Freya, 6, and Theo, 5. Cole has never really accepted me as family or the kids. He's not unkind but disinterested in us, but especially the kids. It's not that he doesn't like kids. He's great with other kids. Cole was in therapy after his mom died and we did family therapy together before my husband and I married. He never spoke against the marriage or us having kids. But he's not very warm toward us either. It really shows with the kids more because they really want to be closer to him. They want him to take the same interest in them as he does in other kids. They have seen him with his friends' much younger siblings and with young cousins and with kids in the neighborhood. My husband and I don't push too hard. I will take Cole to pick up a video game every few weeks because he loves gaming and I ask him questions about the games he enjoys as a way of trying to bond. We also go to arcades, the pool and we go for walks all together. Yesterday I was taking the kids to a Halloween party and Freya asked me why Cole doesn't like them and I asked what she meant. She said she asked why he likes other kids more than them and he told her they don't have the same mom. Theo didn't really understand most of it but Freya understood enough to be upset. She was crying and Theo was confused more than anything. This all came up because Freya wanted to show off her costume to Cole but he wasn't interested. Yet he does show interest in other kids' costumes. I told them sometimes, when a kid ends up with their parents no longer together and they fight a lot or when a kid loses their mommy or daddy young like Cole lost his mommy, it means they find it hard to let some people into their heart. That Cole lost his mommy and it made it harder for him to feel about us the way we feel about him. Freya said her best friend has a sister who has a different dad but she loves her. I told her it doesn't happen all of the time and sometimes it gets better but that how Cole feels does happen at times and all we can do is try to accept it and respect the way he feels. I also told them it was not their fault, at all. My husband wasn't home at the time, but when he did I told him what happened. His parents were also home because they wanted to see the kids all dressed up. They heard what I told my husband and they told me I should never have said that to the kids because I should know Cole isn't being fully honest when he says things about not loving them and I will make the kids think it's true when they're so little and too young to really understand the complexities and I made it so black and white for them. My husband told his parents they needed to leave. But they called me a bad mom before they left. Comment 1. Your NTA. Armchair parental critics are always the AHs. Your explanation was perfect and age-appropriate. An honest answer beats the tap dancing, sidestepping, smoke up the crack answer your in-laws could have tried giving your kids. Comment 2. NTA. You tried your best to explain the situation to a child and you did it without being negative about the one who's being so negative. Is he still in therapy? If not, I suggest restarting, because he needs to learn a bit of humility where his siblings are concerned. I'm not saying he needs to love them, but he certainly needs to stop giving off hate vibes, cause they're not to blame for his loss. Comment 3. NTA. You are a good mom. You respect Cole's boundaries and don't pressure him, which most likely will destroy every kind of relationship you have. It is hard for the kids, but you should try therapy for the younger ones. They need help to understand that sometimes you can't force feelings even to close family members. Refusing to give daughter's inheritance to Bill. So my hubs is one of 4 kids. Sib 1 Jack lives far away and has 2 kids. Sib 2 Kevin also lives far away, no kids. Sib 3 Dan lives at home. Dan lives at home with his wife of 4 years. One of her 2 sons lives with them. Phil has said that when he passes he would like for his house to be divided equally among his 4 children including my hub. Father-in-law would not be able to remain in his house if Dan and his spouse were not in the house with him. Dan is self-employed and has never had health insurance except for when he married his wife. He makes money, managing a window cleaning business. He could have expanded the business many times but has chosen not to, as he likes to do what he likes to do, go on long fishing trips, go out to bars, etc. He never paid rent to his dad. Mom has been deceased for 20 plus years, he is 55 years old. And never paid rent or real estate taxes. Phil is 95 years old, he is mentally there but has limited mobility and very bad hearing. He also cannot control his bowels and needs to be washed. We now have full-time help, but it was a struggle as Dan and his wife and son did not want anyone coming into the house. It is also a struggle because Phil does not want anyone helping him but now understands that he needs assistance. Sib 1 and Sib 2 have never been involved with their father since graduating college. The two grandchildren have only seen their grandfather probably a total of 7 times for a day. Sib 1 has done very well, Sib 2 exceptionally well. Dan and his wife have not been financially responsible and used their dad's credit card to pay for their wedding and honeymoon. After some discussion, my husband together with his brothers agreed to pay off Dan and his wife's debt because the phones were constantly ringing with credit card companies asking for their money back. This was probably another $10,000. Per his dad's will, his home and whatever money is left is expected to be divided equally. Sibling 1 and Sibling 2 have said that they think it would be good to leave the house to Dan and his wife because they don't have much money at all. Dan and his wife have really not saved any money. I told my husband I would be very upset if he did not have the 1/4 of the estate given to our daughter. Just because Dan and his wife have not saved money, I do not think our daughters should give her portion of the estate. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband that he should say he does not agree with giving up our daughter's portion of the estate? It is fine if his 2 siblings want to do so, but they should not be telling us what we should be doing. Comment 1. This is a very common occurrence that causes problems in tons of families. Ideally, Dan would buy out your daughter's 25% of the house. Clearly, he is not the type of person who will step up and do that. I think the decision is 100% your husband's though. You are not in the will and it's not your dad. You really don't get a vote in this situation. I get it's very frustrating, but you are the a-hole here. Imagine your little brother's wife tried to dictate what should happen to your parents' estate. Would you stand for that? Comment 2. NTA, let me explain why. You have repeatedly bailed Dan and his wife out. So, the final bailout is your husband gives away his inheritance? If you'd never rescued Dan and wife, then I could see your hubby playing Mr. Nice Guy. But, supporting his brother is not his duty ad infinitum. It's not wrong to expect him to provide for his child as much as he provides for his brother. Comment 3. Not clear on how your husband's portion became your daughter's? Anyway, it seems to me the house should be sold and divided as intended. This way, should any beneficiaries decide to donate their portion to Dan and his wife so they can purchase a house that seems most reasonable and removes any pressure or obligation for others to do the same, or to have to buy out anyone that doesn't want to do the same. Also, it removes any shaming of those that do not wish to give up their inheritance. For causing the drama of a buyout. Wishing your family good luck. Being upset that my friends hung out without me when our friend from out of town, whose wedding we're all bridesmaids in next week, came to visit and didn't tell me. My 28F friend, 29F, of 10 years is getting married next weekend and I'm a bridesmaid, so of course I've dished out close to, if not over $2,000 when all is said and done for her wedding, which has been a huge burden, but I was happy to do it for my friend. The bride lives about 2 hours away and the other 2 live by me. We were all college roommates, but we all talk every single day in multiple group chats on multiple different apps. Today I got a Snapchat from the bride to our group chat, and it's a video of her fiancé, but in the back I hear my friend who lives in my area talking, which I thought was weird. I asked the bride in our group chat if they were all together and she simply replied yes, and when I asked where was my invite she said she came down here to get Botox, and that was all she said, which is like, okay, but you came with your fiancé and you're all out at the bar drinking. And even weirder, the friend who was in the background of the video called me to chit-chat this morning for over 30 minutes and didn't mention a thing. She claims she ran into them on the street, which I highly doubt, but also thought I had other plans, which I didn't, so they didn't say anything to me. I told her in a separate text that it hurt me that they didn't include me, and she just again said she thought I had other plans, which again we never spoke about. If my friend told me that I hurt them, I would at least apologize for hurting their feelings. I feel like it's intentional to somehow not mention you're coming to my town from 2 hours away and hanging out with our other 2 friends, but not me, even though we are all in your wedding next week and have been friends for the same amount of time. It makes me feel weird to even go to the wedding now. Like, this is very weird, mean girl behavior in my opinion, but am I overreacting and being in a hole? Who wants to be left out like that, especially after spending so much time and money on one of their weddings? Comment 1. NTA: the non-invite was almost certainly intentional and coordinated. My advice is to drop it until after the wedding and then re-evaluate your friendship and what this means. Blowing this up before, or even worse, during the wedding, is something you will almost certainly regret. Comment 2. NTA: while I think that it is okay for friends within a larger friend group to do things independently from the whole group, this feels a little different from that. I don't know why. Maybe it was the need to post, or the fact that she came into town and you were the only one seemingly she did make an effort see. Either way, I don't think anyone is in a hole for what they feel or expressing they were hurt. Your actions moving forward could make you one if you follow some of the advice on this post. A proper response to not being invited out to one night out with your friends is to express you hurt. Ghosting your friend on her wedding is not. Comment 3. Nah. You all talk every day. One of the others rang you as normal to chat the next morning. Nothing to see here. The bride and her fiancé probably did drive to town together for reasons. Maybe one of the others rang/messaged her about something and they spontaneously grabbed a drink, and that's that. It's a week till the wedding. Don't create drama where there doesn't need to be drama. If they were going behind your back and deliberately excluding you, the bride wouldn't have put that video on Snapchat. Telling my sister's boyfriend nobody cares about his Tesla? I, 25M, blew up on my sister's, 21F, boyfriend, 24M, after months of him constantly bragging about his Tesla. I met him a few months ago and it seemed like his entire personality was his Tesla. I would say stuff like I have to stop at the gas station, and he would say what's that, I haven't heard about it in years, or make stupid comments that would lead back to him owning a Tesla Model 3. I didn't mind it at first, but then it became to the point where he was always bringing it up every time in conversation to where everyone seemed annoyed by it. I'm pretty successful in my career, selling one of my businesses for around low 8 figures a year ago and started investing in low-risk investments. I have been living a modest life, own a small 3BD house, starting another business in pest control, and a 2023 Civic Sport that I paid for in cash. One thing I can't stand is someone bragging or being flashy about money. Today, my brother and I were talking about buying a car and he came in and insisted on buying a Tesla because it's the future of cars. He was bragging about the entire thing and trying to convince my brother that even with the high price it's worth it. It didn't bother me until he said, "Don't end up like your brother buying a Honda Civic, they're trash." I blew up at that point, telling him he didn't know what he's talking about. He's wanted to look rich and pretend to be rich because he has a Tesla, meanwhile he's living at his parents' house. I then proceeded to tell him that I had enough money to buy 10 of his Teslas in cash, and it's really not impressive but rather makes him seem like a moron trying to brag about owning a Tesla, and if you want to pretend to be rich you should back the talk instead of leasing a Tesla. This made him really upset and left my parents' house immediately. Both my sister and parents are mad at me because he was trying to be helpful and they thought I was being rude and bragging about my money. Comment 1. The guy is obviously insecure. The Tesla is the only thing he feels he has. He lives at home. Through a whole post you say how you are humble and hate it when people flex. You flexed hard, all over this post. No one needed to know about your income or how much you sold your company for. Even that you had a company. Have a little class and don't punch down. Comment 2. NTA: he wasn't trying to be helpful, He was showing off, trying to impress you and your brother with his car. When you've had to listen to a braggart for months, after a while, you don't care if you hurt their feelings because they never shut up. He's a little man trying to make himself look big. Telling my Mill if she said one more thing about my wedding, she'd be uninvited. Okay, so I, 26F, am Indian and my fiancé, 26M, is white. That never really caused problems for us, and we've been together for 4 years. My Mill, 46F, and I aren't particularly close, but it's never caused the blow-ups I've seen on subreddits like these and other places. I decided to include Mill in my wedding planning as a nice gesture and thought she could help out a little. Colin and I already decided that our wedding was going to have the elements of a traditional Indian wedding beforehand. Mill endlessly critiqued everything I've said was going to be in the wedding, such as me wearing a red langa choli because white was the symbol of holy matrimony, how clunky my wedding jewelry was, the designs of the tablecloths, the flowers in our arrangements, how many people from my side of the family were attending, etc. I tried to hold out for Colin's sake, but I eventually snapped when my Mill told me that my curly hair was unruly and unfit for a wedding, since I decided to not straighten it for the wedding when I invited her and my sister Sierra, 23F, to look at possible hairstyles. I told Mill that if she said one more thing about the wedding, she'd invited, and that clearly pissed her off because she got up and left straight away to complain to her husband about it. Hour later, I got texts from my Phil talking about how disrespectful I was to threaten his wife from being uninvited from her own son's wedding, and I should apologize immediately. Both Colin and Sierra said that Mill was pushing it with what she said, and my reaction was understandable, but I keep getting texts from my Phil and Mill shaming me over it.